Welcome to Sleepy Buddha, a quiet place to rest your mind, release what feels heavy. Let each our stories and teaching guide you towards stillness, deep rest, and a calmer heart. Why does the mind keep walking long after the body is lain down? Story 1. The Pillow Full of Pebbles. In a valley where the evening fog arrived before the stars, there lived a young apprentice named Anne who could repair almost anything except his own sleep. He could mend cracked bowls with lacquer so fine the seam looked like a thread of moonlight. He could reset a gate hinge by listening to the sound it made when the wind pressed against it. He could copy temple verses with a brush that never trembled. Yet when night came and the lamps were covered and the village became soft around the edges, his mind began its second life. It walked through every word he had spoken that day. It turned one ordinary sentence over and over until it grew sharp. It opened tomorrow before tomorrow had arrived, arranging conversations, mistakes, apologies, and victories that had not happened. Some nights it returned to things from years before: a teacher's disappointed look, a friend's silence, a chance he had missed because fear had been quicker than courage. By sunrise, An often felt as if he had crossed an entire country without leaving his mat. The monastery where he trained was quiet, but quiet did not help him. Quiet made every thought louder. When the frogs stopped calling, he heard his doubts. When the wind rested, he heard his regrets. When the old bell rope stopped swaying in the tower, he heard the secret questions he had been avoiding. The other novices spoke of sleep as if it were a pond one simply entered. For Anne, sleep was a locked gate, and every night his mind stood outside it carrying too many keys. One winter evening, after 3 nights of almost no rest, Anne went to the abbot and bowed so low his forehead touched the cool stone floor. The abbot was an old woman named Soryu, known throughout the valley for saying very little and seeing almost everything. She was arranging dried persimmons in a wooden bowl, not for herself, but for the children who came to the temple on market days. Without looking up, she said, "Your eyes are arguing with the dawn." Anne was too tired to pretend. "Master, my thoughts will not stop. I follow the breath as you taught me. I count, I repeat verses. I listen to the rain, but the more I try to quiet the mind, the more it speaks. It feels as if a crowd has entered my room, and none of them will leave." Soryu lifted one persimmon, inspected its wrinkled skin, and placed it gently back. "When guests enter a house," she said, "there are many ways to suffer. One way is to shout at them to leave. Another is to feed them until they stay forever. You are doing both." "I do not understand. You fight some thoughts and entertain others. The ones you fight become soldiers. The ones you entertain become relatives. By midnight, your room is full." She stood slowly and took a small cloth pouch from a shelf. When she placed it in Anne's hand, it was heavier than he expected. Inside were pebbles, smooth and cold, gathered from the river. "Tonight, sleep with this under your pillow." And stared at the pouch. "Will it help?" "It will teach," said Soryu. "That is better than helping." That night, Anne placed the pouch under his pillow, blew out the lamp, and lay down. At once, he felt the stones pressing against his head. They were not painful, only impossible to ignore. He moved the pouch to the left, then to the right. He folded the pillow over it. He tried to convince himself it was nothing, but each time he turned, the pebbles announced themselves. Here, here, here. His mind began its usual wandering. Why had he bowed too quickly when the merchant arrived? Had the abbot noticed the crooked line in the copied sutra? What if he never became calm enough to be useful? What if calmness itself was only for people born with quiet hearts? Beneath each thought, the pouch remained, pressing upward like a small, patient mountain. Near dawn, he slept for perhaps an hour. When he returned to the abbot, his face was pale with frustration. "Master, I slept worse than before. The pebbles disturbed me all night." Soryu nodded, as if this were excellent news. "How many pebbles are in the pouch?" "I do not know." "Then tonight, count them," and wanted to protest, but the abbot had already turned to sweep leaves from the veranda. So that evening he untied the pouch and laid the pebbles on the mat. There were 27. Some were dark as wet tea. Some were pale as old bone. One was striped with a single white line. He counted them again, then placed them back beneath his pillow. The second night was no easier, but it was different. Each time a thought arose, Anne noticed the shape of it, and, strangely, remembered the pebbles. A fear about tomorrow pressed like the largest stone. A regret from childhood felt like the striped one, familiar and oddly beautiful. A small irritation about kitchen duty was hardly a pebble at all, more like a grain of sand pretending to be important. By morning, he understood the lesson only enough to be annoyed by it. "You are making me aware of my burdens," he told Soryu. "But awareness does not remove them." A person with a heavy sack first believes the road is cruel. Then he realizes he is carrying a sack. That realization is not the end, but it is the beginning of freedom. Tonight, remove one pebble before you sleep. Choose one thought you are ready to stop carrying for one night only. Not forever, just one night. Anne returned to his room with the seriousness of a judge. He poured out the pebbles and considered which one to remove. The largest seemed too important. The striped one had been with him so long, it felt like part of him. At last he picked a tiny gray stone and named it. The worry that he had sounded foolish when he asked the rice farmer a simple question that afternoon. He placed the stone on the windowsill. "Only for tonight," he whispered. At first, nothing changed. His thoughts still moved like restless fish beneath thin ice. But when the memory of the rice farmer appeared, Anne did something new. He did not explain himself to himself. He did not replay the question and adjust his voice in imagination. He simply pictured the gray pebble on the windowsill, outside the pillow, outside the head, outside the place where sleep was trying to enter. The thought returned several times, but each time it found no chair waiting for it. He slept a little longer. For 7 nights, Anne removed one pebble. He did not choose the greatest fears at first. He chose the small, unnecessary ones. A look he had misread, a mistake already corrected, a future comment no one had yet made, the need to be praised for work that was already complete. He learned that the mind often practices suffering on minor things, so it can feel prepared for major things. It keeps chewing the same husk, believing nourishment must be inside because effort has already been spent. On the 8th day, Soryu found him beside the lotus pond, watching a dragonfly rest on a reed. "How is your pillow?" Lighter-an said. "But some stones remain. I am afraid to remove them. They feel important. Important thoughts may still be placed down. A sword is important, but one does not sleep holding its blade." Anne looked at the pond. The winter lotus leaves had curled at the edges. Their green had darkened into brown. Yet they floated with such ease. What if I put down a thought and something goes wrong because I was not thinking about it? Then you will meet what happens when it happens. Thinking all night is not the same as wisdom. It is often only fear wearing a scholar's robe. That sentence followed Anne into the evening. Fear wearing a scholar's robe. He had always believed his overthinking proved he cared. He believed if he rehearsed every possibility, he would protect himself and others from pain. But he began to see how often worry only borrowed the language of responsibility. It made maps of storms that never came. It polished tools for doors that never opened. It told him exhaustion was a form of devotion. That night, he chose a heavier pebble. It was smooth, black, and cold even after resting in his palm. He named it the fear that he would never become someone worthy of peace. His throat tightened as he placed it on the windowsill. He wanted to take it back immediately. Without it, who was he? Had he not built his discipline around the secret belief that he was always behind, always lacking, always one mistake away from being exposed? He lay down with the lighter pouch and felt an emptiness where the black pebble had been. The mind, clever as a fox, tried to smuggle the fear back in through another path. It asked whether placing down unworthiness was arrogant. It asked whether peaceful people were simply careless. It asked whether he deserved rest before becoming perfect. And listened. Then he breathed once, not to defeat the questions, but to stop serving tea to them. In the middle of the night, he woke to moonlight on the floor. For a moment, he did not know who he was supposed to be improving. There was only the room, the thin blanket, the quiet outline of the water jar, and his own breathing, entering and leaving, without asking permission. A small happiness rose in him, not bright, not dramatic, but clean. It was the happiness of not being summoned. Morning came. The black pebble remained on the windowsill. Nothing terrible had happened. After that, Anne began to understand that the practice was not about having no thoughts. The river had stones, but it was still a river. The sky had birds, but it was still sky. The mind had movements, but it did not have to become every movement. When a thought arrived, he learned to ask, "Are you needed now?" Some thoughts were useful and asked for action. Some were pain-seeking kindness. Some were simply old echoes looking for a wall. Weeks passed. The pouch grew lighter, though Anne never emptied it completely. Soryu told him that a person who tries to remove every pebble may become proud of emptiness. "Keep a few," she said, "not as burdens, but as reminders. The aim is not a mind without weight. The aim is a heart that knows what it is carrying." One evening, as spring rain touched the roof in soft, uneven beats, A traveler came to the monastery, asking for shelter. He was a merchant from the northern road, and he carried accounts, debts, promises, and worries in leather satchels tied across his shoulders. At supper, he spoke quickly, barely tasting his rice. His eyes darted around the hall, as if tomorrow might attack from behind a pillar, and recognized him immediately, not as a stranger, but as a mirror. After the meal, he led the merchant to a guest room and brought fresh bedding. The merchant sat on the mat with his face in his hands. "I cannot sleep," he confessed. "Whenever I lie down, my mind begins counting everything that may fail," and stood quietly by the door. He could have offered a verse. He could have explained mindfulness in careful words. Instead, he went to his room and returned with the cloth pouch. He placed it beside the merchant's pillow. "These are pebbles from the river," he said. "They are not magic. They are honest. Tonight, feel their weight. Tomorrow, if you wish, choose one to place on the windowsill." The merchant looked confused, then almost angry, then too tired to argue, and bowed and left. Outside, the rain had slowed. In the corridor, Anne felt the strange tenderness that comes when a suffering we once thought was ours alone becomes a door through which we can understand another person. His sleepless nights had not been wasted. They had carved a deeper bowl. Inside him, what once seemed like a private curse had become a small lamp he could carry for someone else. Before sleeping, Anne checked the windowsill. The black pebble still rested there. He no longer hated it. He no longer needed to bring it back under the pillow to prove he was serious about life. He touched it once with 2 fingers, thanked it for trying to protect him, and left it beneath the moon. That night his mind still moved. It remembered, planned, questioned, and wandered, but it no longer ruled the room. Thoughts came like travelers passing the temple gate. Some bowed, some hurried, some looked lost. Anne did not chase them down the road. He did not lock the gate against them. He simply lay there breathing, while the night slowly returned to being night. And sleep, which had never been conquered by force, came quietly when there was finally space for it to enter. If these words have brought even a small moment of peace to your heart, you are warmly invited to subscribe to Sleepy Buddha and share this video with someone who may need a little stillness tonight. Your support helps this quiet space continue creating gentle teachings for inner peace, spiritual growth, and a calmer way of living. Story 2. The Bell That Rang After Midnight. Far from the Valley of Pebbles, beyond cedar forests and terraces of green tea, there was a mountain temple famous for a bronze bell that could be heard across 7 villages. The bell was not large enough to impress the wealthy, and not ancient enough to impress scholars, but its voice carried a warmth people trusted. At dawn, it sounded like a cup of water offered to the world. At dusk, it sounded like a hand resting gently on the shoulder of the day. The bellkeeper was a woman named Wren, whose duty was simple: ring the bell at sunrise, at noon, and at evening. She had inherited the work from her grandfather, who had inherited it from his teacher. Her hands were strong from lifting the wooden striker. Her hearing was so refined that she could tell when snow was coming by the dullness in the bell's skin. Villagers said Wren lived the most peaceful life in the province. They saw her walking slowly, sweeping the tower steps, bowing before each ringing, as if greeting an old friend. But Wren carried a secret. Every night, after the last lamp faded and the temple dogs curled beneath the eaves, she heard the bell ringing when no one touched it. At first, it happened only once in a while. A faint tone would rise in the dark, not through the air, but inside her own chest. She would sit up and listen. The tower was still. The rope hung motionless. The moon, if there was one, rested on the bronze curve like milk in a bowl. Yet in her mind, the bell continued, deep and accusing. Soon the sound became a nightly visitor. It rang after conversations, especially the ones where she had not spoken as kindly as she wished. It rang after small mistakes, a missed offering, a late response to a grieving widow, a moment of irritation toward a boy who asked the same question 3 times. It rang after good days, too, as if reminding her that peace could not be trusted because something, somewhere, had surely been neglected. Wren began to dread the hour after midnight. She would lie down already, listening for the imagined bell. The listening itself made the sound more likely. She told herself not to think of it, and the command became another striker. She pressed her palms against her ears. Though the sound was not outside, she recited verses, counted breaths, visualized still water, and prayed to be released from whatever hidden fault had summoned this inner ringing. One rainy season, a traveling Zen teacher named Bansho arrived at the temple. He was small, cheerful, and unimpressed by reputation. When the monks praised the famous bell, he asked whether it was good for cooking rice. When they described its deep tone, he asked whether it could comfort a mosquito. Some found him disrespectful. Wren found him refreshing, though she kept her distance. On his 3rd night, Bansho noticed Wren sitting awake beneath the bell tower long after the lamps had gone out. Rain stitched silver lines from the roof. The courtyard smelled of wet stone and pine resin. "Bellkeeper," he called softly, "why are you guarding what no one is stealing?" Wren considered pretending she was meditating, but exhaustion made honesty easier. "The bell rings in my mind," she said, "every night. I cannot stop hearing it." Bansho climbed the steps and sat beside her without asking permission. "Ah," he said, "a faithful bell." "It is not faithful. It is tormenting me. Or perhaps you have mistaken an echo for an enemy." Wren frowned. An echo of what? The teacher pointed to the great bell, dark and patient under the tower roof. "When you ring this bell at dusk, does the sound end the moment you lower the striker? It fades. And if the valley is full of cliffs, it returns. Does the echo mean you must strike the bell again?" Wren did not answer. Bansho smiled. "Your mind is a valley with many cliffs. During the day, life strikes it. Words, duties, griefs, hopes, disappointments, unfinished tasks. At night, when the world grows quiet, the echoes return. You believe each echo is a new command, so you wake up and strike the bell again." Wren looked out at the rain. She had never thought of her thoughts as echoes. She had treated each one as fresh evidence that something needed solving. If a memory returned, she investigated it. If a fear appeared, she prepared for it. If a regret spoke, She held court in the darkness. She lived as if every mental sound required an answer. "What should I do when it rings?" she asked. "Let it finish ringing." The simplicity irritated her. "I have tried letting it ring. It does not stop." "No," said Bansho. "You have tried waiting for it to stop while secretly measuring whether it has stopped. That is not letting. That is bargaining." The next morning he gave Ren a task. After the dawn ringing, she was to remain in the tower until the sound completely faded. She was not to bow, move, count, or decide when the bell was gone. She was only to listen. Ren thought the task almost insulting. She had listened to the bell all her life, but when the striker met bronze and the sound opened over the valley, she discovered she had rarely listened without purpose. The first moments were easy. The bell filled everything. It entered the ribs, the beams, the wet leaves, the clay path, the sleeping houses below. Then it became thinner. Ren wanted to name the exact moment it disappeared. Her mind leaned forward, eager to capture silence like a coin. Still, the sound continued, now barely a thread. Then it seemed gone. But perhaps there was a trace. Perhaps the trace was only memory. Perhaps memory was also a kind of sound. By the time she left the tower, she felt unsettled. The bell had not behaved like an object. It had behaved like weather. It had no clean border between presence and absence. She could not say where sound ended and listening began. For 7 days, Bansho made her repeat the practice. At dawn, she listened to the fading bell. At noon, she listened again, when village noise rose like dust. At evening, she listened, while crows crossed the orange sky. Slowly, Ren noticed something that changed her relationship with the night. The bell did not need her help to fade. It faded because fading was its nature. Sound did not become silence by being pushed. It became silence by being allowed to complete itself. When the inner bell rang that night, Ren did not sit up. She did not press her ears. She did not begin the trial of herself. She whispered, "Echo," and listened. A memory appeared. She had spoken sharply to an elderly monk who misplaced the oil ladle. The old habit rose quickly. She wanted to explain, apologize in imagination, plan a better tone, rehearse humility. Instead, she let the echo be an echo. It rang with embarrassment, softened into sadness, and beneath sadness, she felt tenderness for her own tiredness. The sound changed. It was no longer a judge striking bronze. It became a wave moving away from the shore. The next day, she apologized to the monk in 3 plain sentences. She did not make a ceremony of it. She did not confess 10 additional faults to prove sincerity. She did not return at night to polish the apology in memory. A useful echo had led to a useful action. After that, she let it fade. This became Ren's practice. Distinguish the bell from the echo, and the echo from the action required. Some thoughts asked her to repair harm. Some asked her to prepare wisely. Some asked only to be felt and released. The mind that overthinks often confuses these. It treats every echo as a bell that must be rung again. It believes repetition is responsibility. Yet responsibility has a clean feeling, even when difficult. Rumination has a sticky feeling. It circles because it is afraid to land. One night, a storm came over the mountain. Wind struck the bell tower hard enough to wake half the temple. The great bronze bell trembled and released a low, accidental tone. Ren woke immediately. For a moment, panic rose. The inner bell and outer bell seemed to become one. She hurried to the tower with a lamp cupped in her palm. Bancho was already there, his robe whipping in the wind. Rain blew sideways under the roof. The bell moved slightly. Not enough to be dangerous, but enough to hum whenever the gusts pressed against it. Ren reached for the rope to steady it. "Wait!" Bancho said, "It will keep ringing. Wind is touching it. Should we not stop it? If the bell is in danger, we protect it. If the bell is only singing because weather has come, we listen." The bell groaned, whispered, shivered, then fell quiet between gusts. Ren realized that much of her inner life was like this. She tried to stop the mind from ringing even when weather was still moving through it. A difficult day, a painful memory, a body too tired, a heart uncertain about love or death or purpose. These were winds. Of course the bell would sound. The question was not how to become a bell no weather could touch. The question was how to stop mistaking natural resonance for failure. After the storm, the air smelled washed. Bancho left the temple a few days later. As travelers do, before departing, he bowed to Ren and said, "When the bell rings, let the bell ring. When the echo returns, let the echo return. When action is needed, act. When no action is needed, sleep." Ren carried those words for many years, but not as a slogan. She carried them as one carries a bowl, useful when empty, useful when full. She still had restless nights. A peaceful life is not a life without weather. Sometimes an old embarrassment rang. Sometimes grief rang. Sometimes joy rang so brightly she could not sleep, because gratitude itself had become a bell. But she no longer believed every sound was an emergency. Villagers continued to call the temple bell beautiful. They did not know that its keeper had learned her deepest teaching not from the first strike, but from the fading afterward. She learned that thoughts are not quieted by being chased down the valley. They become quiet when we stop building cliffs for them to strike. And on certain nights, when someone in the village could not sleep, they would hear the temple bell at dusk and feel the day loosening its grip. They did not know Ren was standing beneath it, listening past the loudness, past the echo, past even the idea of silence, into the tender space where the mind does not need to answer itself anymore. Story 3. The Weaver of Unfinished Threads. In a coastal town, where fishing nets dried like silver webs along the harbor wall, there lived a weaver named Lian, who made cloth for weddings, funerals, births, and journeys. Her hands moved with such grace that people said she could persuade thread to remember the sky. She wove indigo shawls deep as midnight, saffron altar cloths bright as marigolds, and simple white blankets for newborn children whose names had not yet been chosen. Lian was admired for her patience, but admiration often hides what it cannot see. Her loom was orderly. Her mind was not. Every piece of cloth she made opened 100 unfinished threads inside her. When she prepared a wedding sash, She wondered whether the marriage would be happy. When she wove a funeral cloth, she wondered if the dead person had been loved enough. When a traveler ordered a cloak, she imagined roads, thieves, fever, loneliness, and the possibility that one loose stitch might become suffering in a distant province. Her overthinking wore the mask of care. She checked each knot 3 times, then 5, then 9. She touched completed cloth after sunset, searching for flaws that daylight had not revealed. If a customer praised her, she wondered what disappointment they were politely concealing. If a customer said nothing, she heard criticism in the silence. At night, she lay beside the loom, too tired to work and too restless to sleep, while unfinished threads moved through her thoughts. The town had a small Zen hall built near the sea. Its teacher, Master Kaito, was once a fisherman and still smelled faintly of salt no matter how often he washed his robes. He taught with nets, shells, broken oars, and whatever the tide left behind. People came to him with grief, anger, confusion, and sometimes questions that were really complaints, dressed in spiritual clothing. Lian avoided him for a long time. She feared he would tell her to care less. People who do not overthink often imagine the cure is carelessness. And Lian had no wish to become careless. Then, one morning, after spending an entire night unpicking a border only she believed was uneven, she pricked her finger and stained a white baby blanket with blood. The red dot bloomed on the cloth like a small accusation. She carried the blanket to Master Kaito and laid it before him. "My mind has ruined my work," she said. Kaito examined the blanket, then examined her face. "Your finger has marked the cloth. Your mind has marked you. Which wound brought you here?" Lian sat down heavily. "I cannot finish anything. Even when the cloth leaves my hands, I keep weaving it in my head. I worry about every consequence. I imagine every flaw. I try to make things safe by thinking ahead, but there is no end to ahead. A net thrown into the entire ocean catches nothing but the fisherman's own exhaustion." He took her to the shore behind the Zen hall. The tide was low. Children were collecting shells near the rocks. Farther out, a fisherman repaired a net, tying one broken strand at a time. Kaito pointed to him. "What is he doing?" "Repairing his net." "Why does he not repair every net in town?" "Because this one is his." "Why does he not repair the places that may break next year?" "Because they have not broken." "Why does he not repair the ocean?" Lian almost smiled. "Because the ocean is not a net." Kaito looked at her until the smile faded into understanding. "Your mind is trying to repair the ocean." The words entered Lian slowly. She had believed every possible future was a loose thread entrusted to her. If she did not think about it, who would prevent harm? If she did not imagine every pain, was she not abandoning those who might suffer? Yet, standing before the sea, she saw the madness of trying to mend water. The ocean moved by its own nature. Nets could be repaired. Boats could be maintained. Weather could be respected. But the ocean could not be stitched into obedience. Kaito gave her a practice. For the next month, before beginning any cloth, she was to place 3 bowls beside the loom. The first bowl would be called Mine to Mend. The second, Not Mine Tonight. The third, Unknown. Each time a worry arose, she was to write a word or phrase on a scrap of paper and place it in one bowl. No argument, no explanation, just sorting. Lian thought the practice childish, which usually means the ego has been caught without armor. Still, she obeyed. On the first day, while weaving a blue travel cloak, she filled the bowls quickly. Mind to mend, strong hem, correct size, honest price. Rest my eyes, speak kindly to the apprentice. Not mine tonight, whether the traveler meets rain, whether his brother forgives him, whether the road is safe after the third bridge. Unknown, whether the cloak brings comfort, whether the traveler returns, whether this work matters. By sunset, the third bowl overflowed. The unknown had always been the largest part of her life, but she had been trying to hide it beneath effort. Seeing the scraps piled together made her uneasy. She wanted to move some into the first bowl just to feel useful. Instead, she tied the scraps with thread and placed them on a shelf. That night, when the mind reached for the traveler's future, she whispered, "Unknown." The word was not a wall. It was a room. It allowed the future to exist without demanding she furnish it. Days passed. The bowls began to teach distinctions that thought alone had blurred. Some worries became actions. If she worried about a weak seam, she strengthened it. If she worried about an unclear request, she asked the customer. If she worried about her apprentice's mistake, she offered instruction instead of silent resentment. These were clean worries, like bells that needed one ringing. But many worries belonged to the second and third bowls. They were not solved by attention. They were fed by it. One afternoon, a woman came to order a funeral cloth for her husband. She was young, with 2 children clinging to her sleeves. Lean felt the old machinery awaken. What pattern could honor such grief? What if the cloth was too plain and seemed cold? What if it was too beautiful and deepened sorrow? What if the children remembered the cloth their whole lives and found it painful? What if they forgot, and that too was painful? Her hand moved toward the scraps of paper. Mind to mend, weave with care. Ask what color comforts her. Finish on time. Not mine tonight, the shape of the widow's grief after she leaves. Unknown, how love continues after the body is gone. Lian looked at the young woman and asked one honest question. What did he love in this world? The woman began to cry, not loudly, but with relief. He loved rain on the roof, she said, and plum blossoms before they opened. And he loved watching our son sleep. Lian wove a simple cloth the color of soft rain, with a border of small unopened blossoms. She did not try to weave the whole marriage. She did not try to mend death. She mended only what was hers to mend: thread, attention, kindness, presence. When the cloth was finished, it felt complete, though life around it remained unbearably unfinished. That evening, for the first time in months, Lian did not unroll completed work after dark. She washed her hands, covered the loom, and walked to the harbor. Boats rocked against their ropes. The sea kept moving, indifferent and generous. She understood then that rest requires humility. To sleep, one must admit, the world continues without our supervision. The tide comes in. Children grow. People grieve. Mistakes ripen into lessons or consequences. Seeds open underground. We are not asked to hold all of it in the mind. But the habit of overthinking does not dissolve with one insight. A week later, Lian received an order from the governor's house, a ceremonial cloth for a public vow. The old pressure returned. With royal clothing, she imagined disgrace, gossip, lost reputation, the apprentice blamed, the temple disappointed, the town whispering that her skill had faded. Her hands shook. She moved nearly every scrap into mind to mend until the bowl looked like a nest of frightened birds. Master Kaito visited without invitation, as teachers sometimes do when students are pretending to be fine. He looked at the first bowl and raised an eyebrow. You have become responsible for weather, politics, other people's opinions, the governor's mood, and the future of weaving. Congratulations, Lian laughed despite herself, then covered her face. I know, but this cloth matters. Yes, said Kaito. So do not ruin it by weaving your fear into it. What is the strength of cloth? Many threads crossing. And what happens if one thread tries to become the whole cloth? It snaps. That is your mind. One thread trying to do the work of all conditions. Your effort matters, but it is not the only thread. Time is a thread. Other hands are threads. The customer's heart is a thread. Chance is a thread. Let the cloth be cloth. Let yourself be one faithful strand. Lian removed many scraps from the first bowl, not carelessly, carefully. She placed them where they belonged. Not mine tonight. Unknown. She completed the governor's cloth with steady attention, and when it left her workshop, she bowed to it as one bows to a departing guest. It was no longer hers. Months became seasons. The 3 bowls remained by the loom, though she used them less visibly. Eventually they became internal bowls. When a thought came at night, she could feel which bowl it belonged to by its weight. Mine to mend had the weight of a tool. Not mine tonight had the weight of a closed door. Unknown had the weight of sky. One evening, her apprentice, a boy named Taro, stayed late after ruining a length of red silk. He sat with his shoulders hunched, staring at the tangle as if shame might untie it. Lian saw in him the beginning of the old path. One mistake becoming a story about the self. One thread becoming the whole cloth. She set 3 bowls before him. This one is for what you can mend, she said. This one is for what is not yours tonight. This one is for what no one knows yet. Taro looked skeptical. Will bowls make me a better weaver? No, said Lian, but they may stop you from trying to weave with your forehead at midnight. He laughed, and the laugh loosened the room. Together they sorted the worry, mind to mend, learn the knot again, tell the customer the truth, salvage what can be used, not mine tonight, whether Master Lian is secretly disappointed, forever, unknown, whether this mistake becomes skill. By the end, the silk was still tangled, but Taro was not. That night, Lian slept beside the quiet loom. She dreamed of the sea weaving moonlight into waves and unweaving it just as easily. In the dream, no wave apologized for changing shape. No thread begged to become the whole cloth. No bowl overflowed. There was only movement, attention, release. When she woke, she did not rush to remember the dream perfectly. She let it fade, trusting that what mattered had already touched her. The loom waited. The town waited. The sea continued its ancient breathing. Lian rose and began the day not as the mender of the ocean, but as a woman who could place one thread carefully across another, and then, when evening came, allow the unfinished world to remain unfinished while she rested. Story 4. The Room Where Thoughts Bowed. There was once a monastery built around a room no one used during the day. It had no statue, no altar, no incense bowl, no painted screen, no cushion reserved for a great teacher. Its walls were plain clay. Its floorboards creaked in winter. A single round window looked toward a grove of bamboo, and when the wind passed through the stalks, shadows moved across the floor like slow water. The monks called it the night room. Anyone who could not sleep was allowed to enter. There was only one rule. No one could bring a lamp. The room was never completely dark. Moonlight, starlight, snowlight, or the faint gray of clouds always found some way through the window. But the absence of a lamp prevented the sleepless from turning restlessness into work. They could not read. They could not write letters. They could not reorganize tomorrow. They could only sit, lie down, breathe, and meet the mind that had followed them there. A young scribe named Dinan came to hate the night room before he ever entered it. He had heard older monks speak of it with gratitude, and gratitude annoyed him. He did not want a room. He wanted a solution. Dinan copied sutras by day and argued with himself by night. His thoughts were precise, disciplined, and cruel. They did not simply worry. They built cases. They gathered evidence. They quoted his own failures back to him with scholarly accuracy. If he made a copying error, the mind declared his attention weak. If he succeeded, the mind warned him not to become proud. If a teacher praised him, the mind questioned the teacher's judgment. If no one praised him, the mind used the silence as proof of inadequacy. Dinan's overthinking was not chaotic. It was orderly, and that made it more convincing. It wore the robes of wisdom while stealing the rest wisdom requires. The abbot of that monastery was a quiet man named Aishin, whose eyebrows had grown so long that novices suspected they contained secret teachings. He watched Dinan grow thinner through the autumn. One morning, while Dinan was grinding ink with unnecessary force, Aishin said, "Tonight, go to the night room." Dinan kept grinding. "I am not sick. I said you are crowded. Meditation in my own room is enough. Your own room has too many exits for escape." In his own room, he could adjust blankets, straighten scrolls, check the water jar, review notes, count floor cracks, and call these things preparation for sleep. The night room offered no such dignity. It was just a room where one could not pretend restlessness was useful. That night, he entered reluctantly. The moon was thin. Bamboo shadows crossed the floor. He sat with his back against the wall and waited for something spiritual to happen. Nothing did. His knees hurt. His mind began immediately. You should have finished the blue scroll. You bowed. Too late in morning service. Your breathing is shallow. Other monks sleep because they practice correctly. You are turning sleeplessness into another performance. Even now you are hoping to become peaceful so you can admire yourself for becoming peaceful. Dinan opened his eyes, though there was little to see. The room did not care. This offended him. His mind was producing arguments of great complexity, and the room remained clay, wood, shadow, bamboo. No reply, no encouragement, no correction, just space. After an hour he left, angrier than before. In the morning, Aishin asked, "How was the room?" "Empty." "Good. Go again tonight." For 6 nights, Dinan went. Each night, the room was empty. Each night his mind arrived carrying scrolls of accusation. By the 7th night, he began to notice that thoughts behaved differently in the night room. In his own room, they seemed enormous because everything there belonged to him. His mat, his robe, his brush, his unfinished work. The thoughts used these objects as hooks. In the night room, there were fewer hooks. A thought could still appear, but it could not easily become furniture. On the 8th night, Aishin gave him an instruction. When a thought comes, bow to it inwardly. Do not agree, do not disagree. Bow. Dinan stared. To every thought? If a beggar comes to the gate, you bow. If a lord comes to the gate, you bow. Bowing does not mean giving them the monastery. That night, Dinan sat in the room and waited. The first thought came quickly. You are wasting time. He stiffened, ready to argue, then remembered. Inwardly, awkwardly, he bowed. The thought did not vanish. It looked, if thoughts can look somewhat confused. Another came. Tomorrow you will be exhausted. Dinan bowed. Another? This practice is foolish. He bowed to that one too. At first, his mind accused him of using humility as a technique, and he bowed to the accusation. It accused the bowing of bowing to itself, and he bowed again. Soon, the whole performance became almost funny. The mind, so used to being treated as commander or enemy, did not know what to do with courtesy. Thoughts arrived expecting debate and found a doorman who greeted them without surrendering the house. Dinan slept on the floor before dawn. It was not a deep sleep, but it was the first sleep in many nights that had not been wrestled to the ground. The next day, he asked Aishin, "Why bow to thoughts?" The abbot poured tea into 2 cups, because what you resist, you secretly make important. What you obey, you openly make important. Bowing is the middle way. It acknowledges appearance without granting authority. Some thoughts are terrible. Then they need the bow even more, not because they are true, but because hatred binds you to them. Dinan carried this teaching uneasily. He did not want to be polite to fear. He wanted to defeat fear so completely it would never return. Yet, he had tried defeat for years and had only become intimate with his enemy. Bowing created distance. A thought could be present without becoming a throne. Winter arrived. Snow gathered on the bamboo leaves and fell in soft clumps when the wind shook them. The night room grew cold. Sleepless monks came and went. Some wept quietly. Some sat rigid with worry. Some lay down and stared at the round window, as if it were an eye looking back from the sky. Dynan began to feel less ashamed of his restlessness. The room revealed a hidden brotherhood. Many people suffer beneath blankets while believing they are the only ones awake. One night, a novice named Jory entered after midnight and found Dynan sitting near the wall. Jory whispered, "I keep thinking of my mother. She is ill, and I cannot go home until spring. If I sleep, it feels like abandoning her." Before the night room, he might have offered a verse too quickly, or explained impermanence, as if doctrine could cover a son's fear. Instead, he listened. The bamboo shadows moved over Jory's face. After a while, Dynan said, "When the thought of your mother comes, can you bow to it?" They sat together, no lamp, no solution, no pretending grief was smaller than it was. A thought entered, and Jory bowed. A fear entered, and he bowed. Love entered, and he bowed. Near dawn, he slept with his cheek against his sleeve. Dynan remained awake, not with anxiety, but with tenderness. He realized bowing to thoughts also meant bowing to the human heart that produced them. As months passed, Dynan's practice deepened. He discovered that thoughts were not all the same. Some were frightened children. Some were old teachers repeating lessons no longer needed. Some were messengers carrying practical instructions. Some were actors wearing masks, hoping drama would earn them attention. Bowing allowed him to see without immediately joining the play. A recurring thought troubled him more than the others. You will never be free. It came when he was tired, when he made mistakes, when peaceful moments ended. It had the voice of certainty. For a long time, even bowing to it did not soften its force. Then one night in the room, Dynan asked silently, "Who is saying this?" Not with aggression, but with curiosity. No answer came. The thought repeated, "You will never be free." Dynan bowed and asked again, "Who is saying this?" Behind the words, he felt a younger version of himself, a boy who had once tried hard to please a father who measured worth by achievement. The thought was not prophecy. It was memory wearing armor. It had been trying to protect him from disappointment by expecting it first. Dynan bowed more deeply than before, not to the sentence, but to the pain beneath it. Tears came without story. They did not need to be interpreted. They moved through him like thawing water. After that night, the thought still returned sometimes, but it no longer sounded like truth carved in stone. It sounded like someone knocking from an old room. Dynan could answer gently, "I know you are afraid. You may rest now." Whether the thought rested or not was not fully in his control, but he no longer invited it to write the law of his life. One spring morning, Aishin asked him to sweep the night room. Sunlight entered through the round window, revealing dust in the corners. By daylight, the room looked ordinary, almost poor. Dynan swept slowly. He noticed scratches in the floor from years of sleepless feet, small dents where perhaps someone had set down a cup despite the rule, a faint stain near the wall where tears or spilled water had dried long ago. The room was not empty after all. It was full of what people had not been able to carry alone. He asked the abbot, "Why is there no statue here?" Aishin replied, "Because the restless mind would turn even the Buddha into another thing to evaluate. Is my devotion sincere? Is my posture correct? Do I feel peaceful enough the room gives nothing for the mind to decorate? And no lamp. A lamp is useful for seeing objects. Darkness is useful for seeing grasping. He had come to love the room, not because it cured him, but because it stopped demanding that he be cured before entering. This was different from everything his overthinking had promised. The mind said peace would come after every question was answered. The rune taught that peace begins when one stops requiring answers from every question. Years later, after Aishin died and Dainen became an older monk with lines around his eyes, travelers still came asking about the night room. Some hoped it contained a secret method. Some wanted a mantra to silence thought instantly. Some wanted assurance that spiritual people never endured restless nights. Dainen disappointed them kindly. The mind is not a dog you order to sleep, he would say. It is more like a frightened visitor standing in rain. Open the door, bow, and do not hand it the keys. He kept the room plain. No statue, no lamp, no scroll. Only the round window and bamboo shadows. When the roof leaked, he repaired it. When the floor cracked, he replaced one board and left the others. He understood now that a sacred place does not need to appear impressive. It only needs to make honesty possible. One autumn night, an elderly woman from the village came to the monastery. Her husband had died that morning, and her children, worried for her, begged the monks for help. She refused prayers. At first, she refused tea. She refused comfort. If I sleep, she said, I will wake into a world where he is still gone. Dainen led her to the night room. She sat by the wall, wrapped in a dark shawl. For a long time, she said nothing. Then she began speaking to the air, telling her husband about the rice she had forgotten to wash, the crack in the garden pot, the neighbor's new grandchild, all the small, ordinary things grief suddenly makes holy. Dainen sat outside the door, close enough to hear if she called, far enough not to intrude. Near dawn, he heard her whisper, I do not want this thought. Then a pause, then softer, but I bow. When morning light entered, she was asleep. Her face was wet, but no longer clenched. Dainen closed the door gently. He knew grief would return. He knew the mind would ring, weave, carry pebbles, argue, and wake again. But he also knew that a thought bowed to is different from a thought enthroned. A sorrow allowed to breathe is different from a sorrow fought all night. A mind given space may not become silent at once, but it begins to remember. It is not a prison. Thank you for resting here with Sleepy Buddha. If this reflection has helped you breathe a little easier, please consider subscribing and sharing it with someone who may be carrying something heavy. Your kindness allows us to continue offering peaceful stories and teachings for stillness, healing, and inner peace. So if tonight your mind does not sleep, do not hurry to hate it. Do not believe every sentence it speaks. Do not make a battlefield of the pillow. Imagine a plain room inside you. No lamp, no altar, no demand to become perfect before entering. Let each thought approach the gate. Bow. Some will pass quickly. Some will sit down and cry. Some will repeat old warnings. Some will bring one useful task for tomorrow. Bow to each without giving away the house. If a worry is a pebble, place one down for the night. If a memory is a bell, let its echo fade without striking it again. If the future is an ocean, mend the one net in your hands and let the waves move as waves. If a thought enters the night room, bow until you can feel the space around it. None of these practices forces sleep. They do something gentler. They stop feeding the part of the mind that believes rest must be earned by solving the entire world. The Buddhist path has always pointed toward seeing clearly. Seeing clearly does not mean thinking endlessly. It means knowing the difference between care and control, between wisdom and worry, between a message and an echo, between a visitor and a master. Overthinking says, hold everything or something will fall. Wisdom says, hold what is yours with kindness and let the rest return to the vastness that has always held it. Tonight, may the restless mind find a softer place to land. May the thoughts that have been marching through you grow tired of marching. May the old fears discover they are allowed to loosen their armor. May the heart understand that it can be sincere without being sleepless, responsible without being tense, loving without rehearsing every loss. And may you, wherever you are, feel the quiet dignity of placing down what cannot be carried into dreams. The night does not ask you to defeat the mind. It asks you to stop abandoning yourself because the mind is loud. Stay near the breath. Stay near the body. Stay near the small mercy of this moment. The pillow is not a courtroom. The dark is not an enemy. The silence is not empty. It is making room for you. And when sleep comes, let it come like a guest who is waiting for the house to become simple again. Before the final quiet, let us gather the teachings like small lamps along a path. The pebble teaches weight. The bell teaches echo. The loom teaches limits. The night room teaches space. Together, they do not promise that thought will disappear. They promise something more trustworthy, a different relationship with thought. The restless mind is often not trying to harm us. It is trying to protect us with tools that have grown too heavy. It remembers danger, so it rehearses. It remembers shame, so it reviews. It remembers love, so it clings. It remembers loss, so it plans impossible defenses against impermanence. When you understand this, you do not need to add hatred to sleeplessness. You can meet the mind as you would meet a tired guardian who has stood watch too long. Thank you for trying to protect me. Thank you for caring in your confused way. The door is safe tonight. The fire is low. The road can wait. The letters can wait. The future has not arrived to be repaired. The past has already passed through the village. You may put down your spear. This is not weakness. It is the beginning of wisdom. A person who cannot stop thinking is not lacking depth. Often they are drowning in depth without a shore. The practice is to create a shore. One breath, one body, one sound, one kind boundary with the mind. Not every thought deserves a journey. Not every worry deserves a meeting. Not every memory must be polished until it shines. Some things become clear only after we stop staring at them in the dark. In Zen, the moon is often used as a symbol of awakened mind, but the moon does not shout at the clouds. It does not panic when hidden. It does not chase its own reflection across water. It simply remains itself, whether seen or unseen. Your awareness can learn this too. Thoughts are clouds. Feelings are weather. Memories are reflections. Awareness is wider than all of them. The practice of sleep is in its own humble way, a practice of trust in this wider sky. So tonight, if the mind begins again, you can answer gently, "This is a pebble. I can place it down. This is an echo. I can let it fade. This is the ocean. I cannot mend it. This is a visitor. I can bow without surrendering. Repeat nothing as a punishment. Use the teaching softly, the way one places a blanket over a child. Let the words become simple enough to disappear. Let the breath do what the breath has always done. Let the body remember the ancient intelligence of rest. There may be unfinished tasks. Let them be unfinished. There may be unresolved conversations. Let them wait outside the room. There may be grief, longing, ambition, guilt, tenderness, and all the strange lights of being human. Let them take their proper size. A thought is not the whole sky. A feeling is not the whole life. A night is not the whole path. Even the longest hour before dawn is still moving quietly toward morning. And when morning comes, do not judge the night too harshly. If you slept deeply, bow to the gift. If you slept lightly, bow to the effort. If you barely slept at all, bow to the one who endured. The path is not built only from peaceful moments. It is built from returning again and again, with less violence toward ourselves, less obedience to fear, and more willingness to let the mind be known without being crowned. May the mind that would not sleep finally learn that it does not have to guard every gate. May it discover that silence is not abandonment, that rest is not neglect, and that peace is not the reward for perfect control. Peace is what becomes visible when control softens. It was waiting beneath the argument, beneath the planning, beneath the old belief that you must think your way into safety. You are allowed to rest before every question is answered. You are allowed to be held by the night, the last gate before sleep. There is a final gate the overthinking mind often guards. It is the belief that rest must be deserved. This belief can become so familiar that we do not hear it anymore. It says, once you become better, then rest. Once the plan is complete, then rest. Once everyone understands you, then rest. Once no one can criticize you, then rest. Once your heart is healed, then rest. Yet the Dharma points in another direction. Rest is not the opposite of practice. Rest can be practiced when it is entered with awareness, humility, and trust. A farmer does not accuse the field of laziness in winter. A musician does not shame the space between notes. A bird does not apologize for landing on a branch. The body, too, belongs to nature. The mind, too, has seasons. To rest is to stop pretending we are separate from the rhythm that carries all living things. Even the sun sets. Even the lotus closes. Even the temple bell grows silent after offering its voice. So let this be enough for tonight. One sincere breath is enough. One softened hand is enough. One worry placed gently beside the bed is enough. One thought bowed to without argument is enough. The path does not demand that you climb the mountain in darkness. Sometimes the path asks you to lie down at the foot of it and trust that the mountain will still be there in the morning. May your room become simple. May your pillow become kind. May your breathing become the small boat that carries you across the river of thought. And if dreams come, may they be light. If silence comes, may it be friendly. If sleep comes slowly, may you meet even the slowness with patience. Nothing true is lost when the mind rests. What matters will return with clearer eyes. A deeper teaching for the sleepless heart. There is a reason overthinking becomes strongest at night. During the day, the world gives the mind many objects to hold. There are voices, doors, meals, messages, traffic, responsibilities, and small urgencies that seem to prove the mind is useful. When evening arrives, these objects fall away one by one. The room grows still. The body asks to descend. But the mind, trained all day to reach outward, does not immediately know how to fold its hands. It continues reaching even when there is nothing left to grasp. In that reaching, it finds old worries and calls them work. This is why the Buddha's teaching on awareness is so gentle and so exact. Awareness is not the same as thinking. Thinking moves toward an object, names it, compares it, judges it, repairs it, remembers it, fears it, or desires it. Awareness simply knows. Awareness can know a thought without climbing inside it. Awareness can know fear without becoming a frightened animal. Awareness can know sadness without turning sadness into a permanent country. When the mind will not sleep, it is often because thinking has forgotten awareness is available. Imagine a candle in a room full of moving shadows. Thinking runs from shadow to shadow, asking what each one means, whether it is dangerous, whether it came from yesterday, whether it will return tomorrow. Awareness notices the candle. It sees that shadows move because conditions move. A curtain shifts, a branch passes the window, a person turns in their sleep. The shadows are not denied, but they are no longer mistaken for invaders. This is the beginning of mental quiet, not the absence of shadows, but the discovery of the candle. If you are listening tonight with a mind full of unfinished thoughts, let this teaching come slowly. You do not need to force yourself into silence. Forced silence is only noise wearing a hand over its mouth. Instead, practice allowing one thought to be known completely without becoming its servant. A worry may say, "What if tomorrow goes wrong?" Let the worry be heard. Feel where it touches the body. Perhaps the throat tightens, or the chest leans forward, or the belly becomes small. Then ask softly, is there one action needed now? If yes, take it simply. If no, let the worry step out of the center. Some thoughts are like children who keep returning to the doorway because no one has truly seen them. If you push them away, they cry louder. If you invite them to run the household, they become frightened by their own power. But if you kneel, meet their eyes, and say, "I see you," something changes. Seeing is not obeying. Kindness is not surrender. You can be tender with the mind without letting it turn the night into a council of emergencies. The 4 stories in this reflection offer 4 medicines, and each medicine is simple enough to practice while lying in bed. From Anne, the apprentice with the pouch of pebbles, we learn to feel the weight of what we carry. Many thoughts stay powerful because they remain vague. The mind says, everything is wrong. Something is missing. I am not ready. I cannot rest. When a burden is vague, it feels endless. When it is named, it becomes a pebble. It may still have weight, but now it has edges. You can hold it, you can set it down. Tonight, if you wish, name just one pebble. Not all of them. The mind that overthinks often demands a complete inventory of suffering before it permits rest. Do not obey that demand. Choose one small stone. Perhaps it is a sentence you regret. Perhaps it is an email waiting for tomorrow. Perhaps it is the fear that someone misunderstood you. Perhaps it is the old ache of not feeling good enough. Name it quietly. Then imagine placing it outside the pillow, outside the body, outside the circle where sleep may come. You are not destroying it. You are not solving it. You are only refusing to sleep with it under your head. From Ren, the bellkeeper, we learn the difference between a bell and an echo. This teaching is especially helpful for those whose minds replay conversations. Someone spoke sharply. You answered awkwardly. A meeting ended with a strange silence. A loved one said, "I am fine," but their eyes said something else. The mind strikes the bell once during the day, and at night the valley returns it again and again. The echo can sound like proof that more thinking is required. Yet an echo is only the fading of a previous strike. When a memory rings, ask, is this asking for action, or is it only echoing? If action is needed, let it be clear and small. Clarify tomorrow. Write the reminder down and return to the breath. But if no action is possible tonight, do not strike the bell again by replaying the scene. Let the echo fade in its own time. You may hear it return. That is not failure. Valleys echo, minds echo. The practice is not to become a valley without cliffs. The practice is to stop shouting into it. From Lian, the weaver, we learn the mercy of limits. Overthinking often grows from a beautiful root, the wish that no one suffer. We want to prevent every mistake, protect every relationship, anticipate every disappointment, and prepare for every turn of the road. But compassion without boundaries becomes a net thrown over the ocean. It catches exhaustion and calls it love. Lian's 3 bowls teach a wiser compassion. Mind to mend, not mind tonight. Unknown. If your mind is busy now, place your thoughts into these invisible bowls. Mind to mend. The one task you can actually do. The one word you can actually speak. The one repair that belongs to your hands. Not mine tonight. The feelings, decisions, reactions, and paths of other people that you cannot control from your pillow. Unknown. Everything not yet revealed. Everything still ripening. Everything life has not handed you. Notice how large the unknown bowl is. Do not be afraid of its size. The unknown has always been large, and still you have made it to this breath. From Dinan, the scribe in the night room, we learn to bow to thoughts. This may be the most delicate medicine. To bow is to recognize presence without becoming captured by it. A harsh thought says, "You failed." Bow. A fearful thought says, "You are not safe." Bow. A restless thought says, "Get up and solve your whole life." Bow. A lonely thought says, "No one understands." Bow. In the bow, you neither crown the thought nor throw it into exile. You allow it to be a visitor, the house remains yours. This matters because many people treat their minds as battlefields. They lie down and begin fighting. I should not think this. I should be calmer. I must stop worrying. Why am I like this? The fight itself becomes another form of wakefulness. The body hears conflict and stays alert. The nervous system does not know that the enemy is only a sentence inside the head. It feels the struggle and prepares for danger. Bowing ends the war for a moment. It tells the body, we do not need to attack our own mind tonight. There is a quiet courage in this. It is not the courage of conquering mountains or speaking before crowds. It is the courage of meeting oneself without adding another wound. Many people are gentle to friends, animals, children, even strangers, yet cruel to the mind when it is tired. They call themselves foolish for worrying, weak for hurting, dramatic for needing reassurance. But the mind that will not sleep is not helped by contempt. It softens in the presence of patient authority, the way a frightened horse softens when held by someone steady. Patient authority means you do not indulge every thought, but you do not insult it either. You can say, I hear you, and still not follow. You can say, that is painful, and still not build a temple to the pain. You can say, we will look tomorrow, and mean it. The mind learns from consistency. If each night you practice placing down, letting fade, sorting wisely, and bowing kindly, the mind slowly discovers that night is not the time for endless court cases. The breath can help, but not if you use it as a weapon. Many people become frustrated with breathing practice because they secretly ask the breath to silence the mind quickly. Then each thought feels like proof the practice is failing. Let the breath be simpler than that. Let it be a small boat tied to the shore. You do not need to force yourself to stay on the boat forever. Each time you drift into thought, you return. The return is not a mistake. The return is the practice. Feel the inhale as receiving. Feel the exhale as placing down. Inhale, and the body is allowed to be here. Exhale, and the day is allowed to loosen. Inhale, and nothing needs to be improved for one breath. Exhale, and the mind does not have to finish its argument. There is no need to count perfectly. There is no need to breathe beautifully. Even an uneven breath can carry awareness. Even a tired breath belongs to the path. If emotion rises, let the body be included. Overthinking often happens because emotion has not been allowed to move through the body. A sadness becomes analysis. A fear becomes planning. A longing becomes fantasy. A shame becomes self-criticism. The mind translates feeling into thought because thought seems more controllable. But some feelings do not need analysis first. They need warmth, space, and permission to exist without explanation. Place a hand gently over the heart or the belly if that feels natural. Let the touch be simple, not dramatic, not symbolic, just human. The body has been carrying you through every unfinished day. It has tightened when you were afraid, stayed upright when you were tired, swallowed words when speaking felt unsafe, and continued breathing through sorrows you did not know how to name. Tonight, let the body know it is not only a servant of your responsibilities, it is also a living field that deserves rest. Sometimes the mind will ask impossible questions at night. Why did my life become this way? What if I never change? What if I lose what I love? What if I am already too late? These questions may be sincere, but they are too large for midnight. Large questions need daylight, food, movement, counsel, and time. At night, answer them with compassion rather than philosophy. This is a big question. I will not abandon it, but I will not let it swallow this whole night. In Buddhist practice, right effort is not constant effort. Right effort is wise effort. A person can spend the whole night thinking and call it effort. But if the thinking deepens confusion, it is not wise. A person can rest, breathe, and return to clarity in the morning, and that too is effort. It is the effort of restraint, humility, and trust. The path is not measured by how tense we become trying to improve. It is revealed in how clearly we see what leads to suffering and what leads away. Overthinking often promises safety, but delivers suffering. It says, I will protect you from surprise, yet life remains surprising. It says, I will make others understand you, yet people understand through their own conditions. It says, I will prevent pain, yet pain visits every human life. When we see this honestly, we do not need to hate thinking. Thinking is a useful servant. It can plan a journey, solve a problem, remember a kindness, learn a skill. But when thinking tries to become the master of existence, it becomes exhausted and cruel. Let thinking return to its proper seat. Give it tasks in the morning. Let it make lists, write letters, ask questions, build bridges, compare prices, study teachings, and choose the right road. But at night, let awareness sit in the larger chair. Awareness does not need to finish the map before allowing the traveler to rest. It knows that tomorrow's mind will be clearer if tonight's body is permitted to sleep. There is also a tenderness in accepting that some nights will remain difficult. Spiritual practice is not a machine that produces instant calm. The mind has habits shaped over years, sometimes over a lifetime. It has learned vigilance from disappointment, perfectionism from criticism, fear from uncertainty, and self-blame from old pain. These habits deserve patience. A seed does not become a forest because we shout encouragement at the soil. A habit does not become wisdom because we demand transformation by midnight. If sleep does not come quickly, make the waiting kind. This is one of the most practical teachings. Much suffering around insomnia comes not only from being awake, but from being angry that we are awake. The anger tightens the body, and the tight body warns the mind, and the warned mind produces more thought. Instead of saying, I must sleep now, try saying, I can rest even before sleep arrives. Rest is wider than sleep. The eyes can rest, the jaw can rest, the struggle can rest. Let the room become the night room. Whatever room you are in, imagine it stripped of judgment. No one is measuring your peace. No one is grading your breath. No teacher stands at the door asking whether you have become enlightened enough to deserve dreams. The plain room of awareness receives you exactly as you are, restless, tender, unfinished, sincere. You may enter without a lamp. You may enter without a solution. You may enter carrying thoughts, and one by one, let them bow. At the edge of sleep, identity often loosens. The worker, the parent, the partner, the child, the leader, the student, the one who must always manage, the one who must always appear strong. All these roles begin to fade. Overthinking sometimes rushes in to hold them together. It fears that if the roles loosen, something will be lost. But sleep is a daily teaching in non-attachment. Each night, we place the self down, and each morning, life returns enough of it for the next step. This is why rest can feel vulnerable. To sleep is to stop controlling the image of ourselves. We cannot impress anyone while sleeping. We cannot defend our opinions, correct misunderstandings, earn approval, or prove our worth. The ego finds this threatening. The heart finds it healing. In sleep, the body remembers a truth the ego forgets. You are allowed to exist without performing usefulness every moment. Let that truth enter gently. You are allowed to exist without solving every thought. You are allowed to be loved before you are flawless. You are allowed to pause before the work is done. You are allowed to release the conversation that cannot happen tonight. You are allowed to let other people walk their own paths while you rest on yours. You are allowed to be a living being under the same moon as all other living beings, needing quiet, needing darkness, needing mercy. If the mind argues with this, bow. If it says, "But what about tomorrow?" bow. If it says, "But what about the mistake?" bow. If it says, "But what about who I should have become?" bow. The bow does not erase tomorrow, the mistake, or the longing. It simply returns them to their true size. A worry may be part of the night, but it is not the whole night. A regret may be part of the heart, but it is not the whole heart. A thought may be loud, but it is not the whole truth. In the deepest sense, mental quiet is not produced. It is uncovered beneath the commentary, beneath the plans, beneath the self-improvement project. There is a basic knowing that has been present through every stage of your life. It was there when you were young and did not yet have words for fear. It was there when you succeeded and when you failed. It is here now, listening. Thoughts pass through it. Emotions color it for a while, but it is not destroyed by what passes through. Zen stories often point to this through ordinary things: a cup, a bell, a broom, a moonlit window. The teaching is not far away. It is in the moment you realize the cup does not need to explain emptiness. The bell does not need to apologize for fading. The broom does not ask whether sweeping one leaf matters. The window does not chase the moon. Each thing fulfills its nature, then releases the moment. The restless mind can learn from such ordinary teachers. Tonight, allow one ordinary thing to guide you. The pillow receives without opinion. The blanket covers without asking for a reason. The floor holds the bed. The wall holds the room. The dark holds the wall. The breath holds the next small opening in time. Nothing is making an argument except thought. Let the silent things teach you how much support exists without words. When the mind is very loud, shorten the practice. Do not attempt a grand spiritual performance. Feel one hand, relax one shoulder, unclench the tongue from the roof of the mouth. Let the eyes soften behind closed lids. Listen for the farthest sound. Then, the nearest sound. Then, the sound of breathing. The mind may continue speaking, but awareness has been given other doors. You are not trapped in the hallway of thought. Some people fear that if they stop overthinking, they will become irresponsible. But responsibility does not disappear. When rumination softens, it becomes cleaner. You may still make the call, keep the promise, repair the mistake, study the lesson, protect what needs protection. The difference is that you do not practice the pain 100 times before taking the step once. You do not confuse self-punishment with maturity. You do not keep the whole village awake inside your skull to prove you care. Care can be quiet. Love can be quiet. Wisdom can be quiet. In fact, the deepest care often becomes possible only when the mind is not tangled in itself. A rested person listens better. A rested person apologizes more honestly. A rested person sees options that exhaustion hides. By allowing sleep, you are not leaving the path. You are preparing the ground from which clearer action can grow. So, let the final teaching be this: the mind that would not sleep is not your enemy. It is a part of you asking clumsily for reassurance. Do not feed it endless stories. Do not strike it with shame. Offer it structure, kindness, and a boundary. One pebble down, one echo fading, one thread released, one bow at the gate. Again and again, not as a ritual of perfection, but as a way of returning home. The night is wide enough for all of this. It can hold the tired body, the unfinished day, the uncertain future, the old memory, the small hope, and the breath arriving now. You do not have to hold alone what the night is already holding. Let the dark be large. Let the mind be small within it. Let awareness be larger still. And if, after all this, sleep comes quietly, do not chase it with gratitude. Let even gratitude become soft. Slip beneath the surface of words. Leave the pebbles on the sill, the echoes in the valley, the bowls beside the loom, the visitors at the gate. The stories have done their work. The teaching can dissolve. The path can become simple. Breathing in, you are here. Breathing out, you release. Nothing more is required for this moment. Nothing more has to be proven before rest may begin. Final gentle descent into sleep. Now, let the teaching become less like an explanation and more like a path beneath bare feet. You have heard of pebbles, bells, bowls, and a room without a lamp. Each image is only a doorway. Once you pass through, you do not need to carry the doorway. Let the stories loosen their shapes. Let the names of the characters fade. Anne, Ren, Lian, and Dinan are not faraway people now. They are movements inside the human heart. One part of us carries too much. One part listens to echoes. One part tries to mend the ocean. One part needs a room where thoughts can bow. Perhaps you can feel these parts within yourself. The one who carries pebbles may be the part that remembers every small mistake. It does not trust forgetting. It thinks a painful memory must be kept close, so the same pain will never happen again. But memory can guide without pressing into the pillow. You can learn from yesterday without sleeping beneath it. You can respect the lesson while releasing the weight. The bell keeper may be the part of you that hears tones long after the moment has passed. Someone's face, someone's message, someone's silence, the slight change in a voice, the delay before a reply. These can echo through a sensitive mind. Sensitivity is not the problem. A sensitive bell has a beautiful sound. The suffering begins when every echo becomes a command. Let the bell be beautiful and let its sound end. The weaver may be the part of you that loves deeply and therefore worries widely. It wants every person safe, every plan clean, every outcome gentle. This part deserves respect. Without it, the world would be colder. Yet even love needs a boundary to remain love. When love becomes control, it tightens. When care becomes endless prediction, it exhausts the one who cares. Let the weaver rest her hands. The cloth can continue tomorrow. The scribe in a night room may be the part of you that uses intelligence against itself. It can analyze a single thought until the thought becomes a maze. It can find a flaw in any comfort. It can turn a peaceful practice into another measure of failure. This part does not need humiliation. It needs a bow. It needs to discover that intelligence is most beautiful when it is held inside kindness. A sharp mind becomes wisdom only when softened by compassion. So as the night gathers around you, let each part receive what it needs. To the carrier of pebbles, offer permission to place one burden down. To the keeper of echoes, offer permission to stop striking the bell. To the weaver of futures, offer permission to mend only what is in her hands. To the scribe of judgments, offer permission to sit in the plain room and bow. Nothing has to be dramatic. The deepest changes often arrive like dew, quietly, evenly, while no one is watching. If you are still awake, notice that this too is an experience, not a failure. Wakefulness can be held gently. Let the body lie as if sleep is already touching it. Even if the mind remains bright, relax the forehead, not because relaxation must succeed, but because the forehead has worked enough today. Let the eyes sink back. Let the mouth soften. Let the shoulders widen into the bed. The body understands invitations better than commands. The mind may ask for certainty before it sleeps. It may want to know that tomorrow will be manageable, that loved ones will be safe, that your efforts will matter, that your heart will not be hurt. Offer it a humbler certainty. This breath is here. This surface holds the body. This night is unfolding. You have survived many uncertain mornings. You have met days you did not know how to meet until they arrived. You do not need tomorrow's strength tonight. Tonight's strength is smaller. It is the strength to soften. In the old teachings, impermanence is sometimes explained as a truth that frightens the grasping mind and frees the wise mind. At night, impermanence can become a lullaby. This thought is changing. This feeling is changing. This tightness is changing. This hour is changing. Even the belief that you cannot rest is changing. Nothing inside the mind is carved permanently into the sky. Clouds may cover the moon, but clouds are travelers too. Let the thought come. Let the thought change. Let the worry come. Let the worry change. Let the memory come. Let the memory change. You do not need to push the river. You do not need to freeze it either. Sit beside it inwardly or lie beside it. and listen to the movement. The river knows how to continue. Awareness knows how to hold. Sleep knows how to arrive when the struggle grows tired. If a final worry appears at the edge of rest, greet it softly. Not now, dear one. We will meet in the morning if meeting is needed. Not now. The stars do not need our management. The road does not need our footsteps until dawn. The heart does not need another trial in the dark. Not now. Let those two words be gentle, not harsh. Not now means the worry is not rejected forever. It means the night has a boundary. Boundaries are a form of compassion. A temple closes its gate at night, not because it hates travelers, but because those inside need rest and those outside need to wait for morning. Your mind can learn this temple wisdom. The gate may close softly. The visitors may remain outside. Some will still be there at dawn, and you can receive them with tea and clarity. Some will leave on their own because they were never true visitors, only shadows looking for a door. And now, let the words become fewer. Let meaning become feeling. Let feeling become breath. Let breath become quiet. The teaching has pointed toward the moon. You do not need to hold the pointing finger. The stories have walked with you to the edge of the path. You do not need to keep walking in language. There is a stillness beneath the mind's movement, and it does not require you to create it. It asks only that you stop covering it with argument. Rest here. Rest with the unfinished life. Rest with the imperfect day. Rest with the heart that tried. Rest with the mind that was loud because it wanted safety. Rest with the body that has carried you faithfully. Rest with the breath that never demanded praise. Rest with the dark that makes no judgment. Rest with the simple truth that this moment is enough to enter gently. May your thoughts bow and take their seats. May your worries grow drowsy in the corners of awareness. May your regrets loosen their fists. May your plans fold themselves like robes placed neatly beside the bed. May your breathing become a soft path through the forest of the mind. May the sleep that comes be kind, and if sleep comes slowly, may the waiting also be kind. The mind that would not sleep does not need to be defeated. It needs to be understood, guided, and allowed to return to its natural place. Let it rest from being the ruler. Let awareness hold the kingdom for the night. Let the heart be unguarded for a little while. Let the world continue without your supervision. Let peace enter, not as a victory, but as a homecoming. Nothing more needs to be carried now. Nothing more needs to be solved before the next breath. The night is already doing its quiet work. The body is already leaning toward rest. Somewhere beyond the window, even if you cannot hear it, the world is breathing with you. Lay down the pebble. Let the echo fade. Leave the ocean unmended. Bow to the visitor. Close the gate. Come home. One last whisper before the silence. Before the voice disappears into quiet, remember this simple kindness. You do not have to earn the right to be held by the night. Many people carry an invisible rule that says, rest is permitted only after everything is understood, repaired, forgiven, organized, and made safe. But no human life reaches such completion before sleep. Every person who has ever closed their eyes has done so with something unfinished. Even the wisest teachers slept while questions remained in the world. Let that humble truth comfort you. Unfinished does not mean unworthy. Unanswered does not mean unloved. The mind may not believe this immediately because it has practiced urgency for so long. Let it learn slowly. Let tonight be one small lesson. You are not abandoning your life by resting. You are returning to the ground from which your life can be met more clearly. If you wake during the night, begin again without scolding yourself. The path is always found by beginning again. Feel the breath. Feel the bed. Notice the thought. Bow. Name the pebble if needed. Let the echo fade if possible. Sort the worry into its bowl. Return to the plain room. These are not steps in a strict ladder. They are gentle doors in the same quiet house. Use whichever door is nearest. And if none of the teachings seem to work, let that be included too. There will be nights when the mind remains windy, no matter how tenderly you practice. On those nights, do not turn the teaching into another weapon. Simply be kind to the one who cannot sleep. Kindness is never wasted. Even when it does not bring sleep, it prevents the second wound, the wound of hating yourself for hurting. The Buddha's wisdom often begins with seeing suffering clearly, not exaggerating it, not denying it, seeing it. Tonight, if overthinking is present, see it clearly. This is suffering. Then see the cause. Grasping, fear, control, old habit, the wish to make life certain. Then see the possibility of release, even if only for one breath. Then walk the path in the smallest way. A softer jaw, a slower exhale, a thought allowed to pass without being followed. This is enough. A small release is still release. A brief silence is still silence. One peaceful breath in a restless night is still a seed of peace. Seeds do not apologize for being small. They simply wait in darkness until conditions are ready. May this darkness be kind to your seed. May something quiet in you trust what it cannot yet see. May the mind that would not sleep discover that it can stop walking for a while. Sit beside the heart and listen to the wide, patient silence that has been here all along. Let the last sound be simple. You are here. The night is here. The breath is still offering itself without demand. Nothing in this moment asks you to become someone else before you can rest. Let the teaching dissolve into warmth. Let warmth dissolve into breath. Let breath dissolve into the quiet place before thought begins. If sleep comes, receive it. If only rest comes, receive that too. Both are gifts. Both are doors back to peace. May this be enough for tonight. May the mind soften, the body feels safe, and the heart remember that peace can begin before every question is answered.